Okay, so our next panel is going to focus really on the civilian perspective on that quality of life, because there's a lot of needs that come from one side and a lot of opportunities from the community side, because as so many people have said today, the community here in Fairbanks, but in Alaska in general too, really does care about making that a good experience for those service members and their families. So Shelly Wade is here. She's the principal owner of Agnew Beck. And the question that we had worked out was, okay, this is a long question. I'm going to try to do it justice. As the primary consultant on the borough's Eielson Air Force Base Regional Growth Plan and related plans and research, what are your observations? What are the benefits and challenges of the community planning process? And what recommendations do you have for the current and future planning?
And hopefully I'm prepared because I gave you that question and that would good. So I have to admit, I really love standing, and I bet you do too. So can everybody please stand? Yay. So my other life is I'm a fitness instructor, so I carry that with me everywhere I go. So lucky you guys, we're not gonna do push-ups. You can have a seat whenever you feel like having a seat. In the meantime, how about we get an upper body workout? Yes. Okay. How many of you have heard of the Eielson Air Force Base Regional Growth Plan? Raise your hand. Awesome. How many, keep your hand up. How many of you have heard of the Eielson Air Force Base Housing Task Force? Awesome. Okay, those are lots of hands. So you can put your hands down, do a big shoulder roll up to your ears and back, and have a seat whenever you feel like having a seat. So I wanted to right away flag the regional growth plan because I'm a certified planner, and our firm does planning, all types of planning across the state. And I really wanted to start first by doing a couple important things. First, for thanking very much Mayor Ward and Brittany for the Fairbanks North Star Borough for inviting me. This has been an amazing day, and my notes reflect, Keith can attest to the fact that my notes reflect kind of an amazing day where what I was going to share with you has changed like 4,000 times. So I'll try to stay on point, but so that's one big message to share, is that thank you very much for the invite. And second, I would like to share that I live and work on the land of the Dena'ina, and would very much like to recognize the tribal indigenous leaders and elders that steward this land that we're having this forum on today. So with that, I wanted to just mention, go back to Jinnel's question, and the reason I flagged the Housing Task Force, and really the Regional Growth Plan as a whole, is because planning, as has been shared today, is really key to the success of really welcoming those incoming personnel and their families in a way that's productive and awesome, and ideally keeps them here for a long, long time beyond their service, in retirement. And so I am one of the products of that. My dad was stationed here at Fort Wainwright in 1975. So he fell in love with Alaska, and here I am. Luckily, I'm only 20, so that was just a couple of years ago. So the thing that I just wanted to reiterate, that I feel like all of you have said this so beautifully all day today, and so I'm just sort of repurposing your words. So if you'll bear with me, Jinnel already did some of this. All of this stuff is happening in real time. So is it Lady Ashton? Is it Baroness? What was the right title? Okay, Baroness, thank you. As the Baroness said so eloquently, this is all happening in real time. There's a lot of uncertainty. The factors and the pieces are changing daily, by the hour. So understanding and that, knowing that, it's very critical that we do all the things that you have all identified today as really key pieces. I'm just gonna say this out loud because it sounds good, and we heard it in Sulcha when we did the regional growth plan, which was F-35s as the sound of freedom. I just wanted to say that out loud because it's great. Okay. The other things I wanted to touch on that have been reiterated through the process, and those things that have been most challenging, is continuing the types of communication and being consistent in those communications with all of your partners. So all of you have identified communications, collaboration, partnership, action, thriving, connections. And I really love, I'm gonna repurpose it, make the connection to make change. And it would be really sad if that didn't happen in today's forum, as Allison had shared with us earlier, and having that personal courage. And I think part of that is that consistency, and Mayor Ward actually identified this in his remarks earlier, is the impact of COVID-19 was multifaceted, one of which was maybe potentially loss of communication and consistency in the communication that's been really critical, was a really critical piece to the regional growth plan. So all of the topics that we've covered, whether that's housing, education, workforce development, childcare, healthcare, transportation, quality of life, the big umbrella that includes trails and recreation, retail, all of those things, all of those topics are covered in the regional growth plan. There's a plan. So, and the plan is only a few years old, but the plan is only as good as all of us working together and really partnering together to implement that plan and consistently and constantly communicate about where are we at in the plan, what's changed, what's new, what do we not know. So we are in the throes, and maybe I'm getting close to my time. Okay. We are in the throes of updating, because I've heard this consistently today, and for very good reason, it's the top of everybody's mind. Housing. So our team has been brought on by the borough once again to assist with really peeling back the layers on the housing question. And I really very much want to thank Colonel Williamson. Captain Hughes is here today? No? No? Pass it on to him, please. And certainly everyone else, Air Force staff, leadership, personnel, during the regional growth plan process, and then this most current collaboration to really work together and do a lot of stuff that's not been done before. So how can we real time share information about what's happening with the community's housing market, and then go outside of the housing and you can add childcare to that. And so I'm gonna again repurpose people's words from earlier. Data analytics, the data as really key. The Geodata Collective, you guys, amazing things. Like all of this stuff really does require the kind of partnerships and collaborations that have been focused on today. And then last, I'll leave you with this. I am so happy to be back home right now and be in a room, a giant room with lots of people. So as you can tell, I kind of groove on this. So thank you so much for the honor of participating and sharing a few thoughts today. Thank you.
Thank you. But wait, there's more. So Jim Lynch is CEO of Chris Kyle Patriot's Hospital and North Star Behavioral Health. We know that resources for mental health care are limited in Alaska. It's a challenge. So how can military-focused facilities like yours help to address the need for the whole family?
Thank you, and good afternoon. Thank you for having me. To those from Fairbanks, hello. I grew up here. My parents moved here in '69. I had the pleasure of growing up in Fairbanks. And been a healthcare leader here for 20 years, and I'm in Anchorage with a statewide focus with the Chris Kyle Patriots Hospital. So for those who don't know, we run our company, Universal Health Services, runs a specialty program for active duty and dependents and first responders. It's inpatient psychiatric care, serving post-traumatic stress and other diagnoses. So not commonly known, but it's a resource here in the state. We serve Wainwright, Eielson, Coast Guard, Navy. We've had patients come from as far away as Japan from your active duty members, so we're proud to serve with you. To answer the broader question of what can we offer and what can we do as an Alaskan community, I thought of several talking points. We all know, we talked about the migration up here and the change that takes place for service members and families, right? We know the basics. We know the risk of dark and cold. One that I think was left off was remoteness or distance from family, distance from support network. And I know early in the day you probably talked about deployment, the challenges of deployment for the family that's left behind, we talked about childcare, we talked about working spouses, all of those things that impact both the community, the family member, and the service member. So we boil that all down in an environment of limited resources, and I have the simplest advice in the world. We need to make sure we all work together to continue to remove the stigma and encourage people to ask for help. That, I think, is the number one thing that we can all do in all of our environments. The military is actually ahead of the game from most other community subgroups. The resources that we talked about here today, I know from our work with service members, they have someone to turn to, which is fantastic. You should be very proud of those efforts. But yet, the stigma part that I mentioned, I think, is still, unfortunately, very significant in our society. I know we deal with active duty members and family members who are concerned about that first moment of speaking out, asking for help. So I don't have the magic answers, but we stand ready to serve. I have a 20-year history here in Fairbanks with Fairbanks Memorial Hospital, Tanana Valley Clinic, and other parts of medicine. You have a very, very willing partnership with the medical community here in Fairbanks. So I encourage your service members to use those resources in addition to the one on post or on the airbase. You've got tremendous community support, and it was said before, really like nowhere else in the U.S. So I'm just proud to be a part of it. Again, if you're not familiar, please Google Chris Kyle Patriots Hospital. We're honored that the Chris Kyle family lent us the name, and we're proud to serve with you. And I failed to mention in my intro, truly the biggest part of what we do is children. So also for your members, really North Star, the original organization, about 80% of what we do is kids and teenagers for psychiatric care, both inpatient and residential. So please keep those resources in mind and don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you.
I love that you said you don't have the magic answer. I heard a presidential quote one time. One of the presidents had said, "By the time something reaches my desk, there are no easy answers." And I feel like by the time something is a panel discussion, there are no easy answers to it, because that shows that we're all trying to figure it out together. So I think that's a good point to make. All right, so next up we have Grier Hopkins, who is here in his capacity as representative for District 4 in the Alaska State Legislature. So how is the state of Alaska approaching these issues, and what progress have we already made? We already talked a little bit earlier, I don't think you were here for that particular discussion, but the military spouse licensure portability definitely came up as an important issue.
Thank you, Jinnel, and I'll go ahead and stand up as well. My name's Grier Hopkins. Thanks to Mayor Ward and Brittany for putting this on today, and for the Alaska Municipal League and everybody else involved as well. Born and raised here in Fairbanks, I've seen how Fairbanks has certainly engaged with the military community, the Chamber of Commerce, the school district as well, and now working as a state representative, trying to bring that communication that we have at every level here in Fairbanks to the state has been sort of a goal that I've been working on. And at the state level, some of what we've done has been a lot of work through the schools, through the school districts. Here in Fairbanks, they have military liaisons at almost every school to help with that ability to ask for help, to see where that is at the ground level. And at the state, we have recently started the Purple Heart or Purple Star program to nominate and identify schools around the state that are going above and beyond to support their military students through additional professional development for their teachers and support staff there, making sure they have the skills and understanding what the students and the families are going through. Because like Jinnel said, it is absolutely true. You can bring the soldier and station the soldier here, but you recruit the family to come with them. So looking at how we can listen to what the communities and the mayors and the assemblies and the city councils in this room and with AML have, also can let us know at the state level what we need to do. We recently did pass some level of the occupational portability effort to make sure that we, as legislators, know what the problems are with those occupational license reciprocity and portability to make sure it's streamlined faster. While we passed some part of it back in 2012, now we need to figure out how we can fix it until we were able to pass that Senate Bill 12. In the House, we worked and passed the military spouse, family, and member occupational preference. We also have another bill that's been working its way through the legislature dealing with students coming in and being stationed throughout the year, being able to be enrolled in schools right away and not having to go through a long process, and helping to expedite that and smooth that process for students. So while we look at a lot of these pieces of legislation, making sure they get passed is always a difficult effort. And we need to make sure we're hearing from different entities that these are important to you guys and how it would work, because we don't always have all the answers. Let's see, we have the military licensures in schools. Another piece of legislation that did come forward from the borough here that's also working its way through is creating what's called what I'm calling the statewide Tiger Team. We have the Tiger Team here in Fairbanks that I'm sure many people are familiar with, and it's wonderful for creating dialogue from the local level up through the federal delegation and listening to the military installations and what everybody needs. And so trying to recreate that at the state level as Alaska's influence in the Arctic theater and everything is being brought more and more to the forefront, ensuring that our communities are ready for the military members that'll come from there, the impacts on their community, both positive and housing issues and support issues and everything that would go along with an increase in population as well. So trying to work those different pieces of legislation through. But like I want to say, again, talking to your legislators, talking to them here in Fairbanks and across the state and the university efforts in your school districts, when you identify a need that you can grasp, let us as legislators know, because we should take direction from Tammy Perot and make sure we know what is needed, what the Department of Defense is saying, so that we can put it into effect here at the state legislative level, because a lot of that action can happen, a lot of that funding can happen at that level, and work in partnership with the installations and the communities. So a lot of work that we're doing and a lot of work still to come in the next year. So thanks everybody for everything you do. Thanks to all the service members for your service to our nation, and for everybody for being here today, saving the best for second last. Thank you.
All right. And to bring us home, we have Keith Klaehn, who is here in his capacity as chair of the Colorado Defense Mission Task Force, as well as the board of directors of the Association of Defense Communities. So he spoke to the Fairbanks Chamber's luncheon yesterday, and I'm sure more depth than we will have time for here today. But I was hoping maybe you could give us one or two successful strategies you've seen in other communities outside of Alaska that have helped them support military families, and how could we learn from them?
I'll try to get to that. First, I want to thank you for the opportunity to have visited with your chamber yesterday, and to having given the Association of Defense Communities here for this forum the opportunity to be a co-host yet again with the Municipal League and then the North Star, Fairbanks North Star Bureau. We're very appreciative of that and look forward to future engagements as well. A couple things I want to touch on before I try to answer your question.
In 4 minutes.
Like you, I think I'd thrown my notes out over my shoulder about an hour ago, because every brilliant idea I had to share has been shared over and over again along the way today. But something I had not heard referenced was, if you have not yet seen the recently released GAO reports, about 50 plus pages to Congress, on the various support services the DoD should consider for military installations or sites in remote or isolated locations, you should seek it out. This report makes considerable reference to sites in Alaska, and you may find it helpful, especially in the realm of advocating for your quality of life initiatives. The ADC made the report available by a link on our ADC 360 online newsletter a couple of days ago, if you can't find it elsewhere. I too, like everybody else in the room, wants to give Rockstar Brittany yet another shout out, but along with Brittany, I'd like to add thank you to Fred Villa from the Governor's Alaska Development Team, as well as Jomo Stewart from the Fairbanks EDC. These three folks have just recently, a couple of weeks ago, represented your state very well, and the Fairbanks community very well, at the Association of Defense Communities ADC Reconnect Conference in Washington, D.C. While it was a relatively small-scale event for our standards, I would hope that they could attest as to how the conversations had and the connections made will bear fruit for all of you. I hope they would also agree with the analogy that virtually all of the subjects we touched upon here today, certainly the quality of life ones, are also touched upon at our ADC events. If you would allow that most of the issues affecting each separate military community, like yours and mine and all around the country, are the micro, then collectively these issues are addressed in the macro through the gathering of our communities and the discussions of these issues with the services at the secretariat level via our ADC events. Our events typically have a number of breakout sessions going at all times, and you might benefit from building a team to attend, then divide and conquer into these breakout rooms, reconvene when you get home and compare notes. My community, for instance, to the last event pre-pandemic, had 40 folks from our state in attendance, and we gather beforehand, during, and after to compare notes. And that includes at least one representative from each, active duty representative from each of the garrisons from our 5 bases, community representatives, elected officials, and commercial interests. Brittany is also on our FOAC, and we're both on that FOAC committee. I mean, that's like an extension cord straight to the government in Washington, D.C., our ability to connect with legislators, our ability to connect with the Department of Defense at the Secretariat level, invaluable. You'll also have a connection with the State Advisors Council. I think Fred was going to attend that a couple weeks ago. And then, of course, we set up or allow for sidebar opportunities for your communities to meet directly with the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for installations, or their Army counterpart, or the Army partnerships person, or the Air Force partnerships person. It's an absolutely unique, bring the Pentagon to you, bring Capitol Hill to you kind of an environment that it would take a considerable amount of effort to arrange those meetings separately. Lastly, on this front, our next event is in San Antonio from the 1st through the 3rd of November, and we'd hope to see many of you there. Could you repeat your question?
Well, we are at 5, but if you'd like to give us one successful strategy that you've seen in another community for supporting military families.
I will tell you the one I just talked about here, that you know, the ADC is almost unique amongst organizations that do this sort of thing. We know of no other, frankly, that addresses these issues for military communities. And I would submit to you, self-serving as I know it is, I don't think there's anything better you can do for your community, your families, than to get engaged with this association, to attend. We have virtual events from time to time, hopefully maybe get a little more away from those post-COVID. But there is nothing more impactful you can do on that macro level than get engaged at the national level on these issues. You guys, the opportunities that this community has would be the envy of any other military community in the nation. You get to grow your mission, you get to meet a lot of new great Americans. It would be the envy of any other military community. So thank you for allowing us to attend and host your event. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so I am being told that the mayor has a couple more comments for you before you leave, but thank you for your attention.